This is fast finance.
It is.
This is fast finance. We have 15 minutes to talk about how real-time data can help us drive smarter decisions. The less I talk, the better. We're tapping into Renault's experience here and talking about how we can use real-time data for better decisions. I want to ask him about how we link that to longer-term, more strategic initiatives in the company, and also to spend a bit of time on risk, given the sort of focus of today's event. Thanks so much for spending time with me, Renault. Let's start with actually what it says on the tin. How do we start? I mean, how does real-time data help us to drive smarter decisions?
Well, it's obvious to say that in this environment that is very dynamic and also very chaotic, we need to be very responsive and make fast decisions. I think I made the analogy to flying a plane. You can overthink things in 3 seconds and you might be in danger, or take a decision in 1 second and again fix it in the next second, and you keep flying safely. So I think this is where we are at CFOs. We are a bit like the pilot of a plane, and there's never been a better time to be a CFO, but it's super challenging. And the expectations of the business, which we support, is to be able to provide this real-time information to make smart decisions.
Right. So help me understand. I mean, I'm an economist, so I'm not in your world, so I respect what you do and all the data you've got going on. But real-time data, I think about like it's up to the minute. That's the point of it. But how does this actually link to? How do you make sure it's linking to where you need to go strategically? So you can have maybe too much data. There's lots of real-time data coming on a daily basis. But how do you make sure it's linking to where you want the company to go, where your goals and where your targets are?
Yeah. So it's defined, first of all, where we want to go to, and the CFOs are probably the ones who have a long-term vision and can support the business in clarifying what the next steps will be, and getting the data that supports that. So it starts with structuring the data so that you have the right data to make those decisions, but also have the analytics tools that can project yourself into the future, and be agile in the assumptions that you use.
So just sorry to interrupt, but tell me if I'm wrong. Has the access to real-time data accelerated or increased in the last few years? If we were sitting here 5 years ago and I had less grey hair, was real-time data as prominent 5 years ago? So has it increased?
Yes, okay. Massively. And first an example, I describe myself as a mobile CFO because I'm always traveling to SAP offices, to customers, partners, domestically or internationally. And my office is my iPad. And if it doesn't work on my iPad, it doesn't work for me. And now I've got real-time reporting on my iPad. I just need a finger to navigate the data. And for me, this is really a big change compared to what you said 5 years ago, maybe, where now we have access to this data. And I can react, but also think about the next steps for the business. And having these analytical tools that take the data straight from the system of record and report to you without having to look, without having to ask someone. I don't have controllers who prepare data for me. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation sent to me on a monthly basis. It's a self-service. I use my own analytics tools to understand where we are navigating, what is the direction.
Right. But I can only imagine, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, but as this amount of data has increased, I guess you have to have some solid oversight into the type and the quality of the data that's coming into your system. Whatever system you're running, it's got to be pretty good data coming in to be able to trust it to make those decisions.
Okay. So I take a different approach. Of course, for statutory reporting, there is no compromise on precision. It has to be accurate and complete. No compromise on that. But for steering the business, I can compromise. And for me, 80-90% accuracy is good enough now to make some decision that I may fix and adjust later on. And this is why I really compromise a little bit on accuracy for timely availability of the data. And it has proven to be the right thing to do. And especially predictive analysis, forward-looking analysis. It will never be accurate, but it's directionally sufficient to make the right decisions.
Okay. Listen, I love the thought of predictive analytics,
yes.
If I understand it correctly. Is there also a need to review the system, because I mean, I used to be in the economic forecasting game, right? We forecast GDP and sometimes we get things wrong. When you're using your predictive analytics, do you have a system where you go back, maybe, look at what you were predicting 12 months ago and review? Does the system regenerate? Does it improve itself over time?
Yes. So for me, quarter-end closing or year-end closing is no new news.
Yep.
So I always say that a surprise is a bad surprise, even if it's a positive surprise. So I don't like surprises. And I really rely on forecasting, on predictive analysis. And yes, we have a feedback loop, and yes, we optimize. But we have now optimized our algorithms, so that is pretty accurate. That really helps me prepare before we close the books, my narrative to my stakeholders, internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, and the actual numbers are just a confirmation of what I knew already. So I'm mostly living in the future rather than in the past.
Yeah.
And this is also what my business partners expect from me.
Okay.
What if we go that direction, if we make this decision now, what will be the impact? But they don't simply expect me to reflect on what they come up with, but more come proactively and say, I'm seeing this trend in the business. Mm-hmm. These are the two options, and this is the evaluation of both.
Yep. And having trustworthy, credible, real-time data allows you more confidence, more accuracy to give those options?
Yes. So at times of closing the books, I have a real-time access to my balance sheet and P&L as it's being booked, so to say, which means that I know already the story. I know what the numbers should show. And I can tell my teams, there is something missing because I expect this movement is not showing. And it might be because that task will be booked next day, and it's fine. If it's not, then at least I can ensure the completeness of the accounts. And for the business, it's the same. I'm providing the data as a self-service to the business. They don't rely on me to receive the information. Like me, they have an iPad and they run it themselves. And it's a change in the culture of finance because now, instead of being the number factory, we are the minds who provide them the insight. And I love when the business comes back to me and says, Bruno, I ran this report, I don't understand this number. Because that's what I want to do. I want to be here to explain, make sense of the numbers, rather than supplying the numbers.
Right. So there is a difference, and forgive me, I'm an economist, not in your world, but there's a difference between providing insight and just being a numbers factory,
yes,
as you described it. Okay, yes. Okay, fascinating.
So we are providing the platform. So we're not providing data, but insight and predictive insight. Yep. That's the big transformation that we went through at SAP. I'm with the company for 27 years, so I've seen a lot. And I know when I started, it was far from that. It was really controllers working in Excel and transforming the table from Excel to PowerPoint and sending it at the end of the month to some decision makers. So it was already outdated because the business moved on. And very often we are not able to provide explanations because we are so disconnected with the business. Now that we automated the reporting and it's real time, we are focusing on business partnering. So understanding the business, being the co-pilot of the CEO, that's how I describe myself. I'm the co-pilot. I'm sitting in the car next to the CEO. The CEO is still making the decisions because she's at the steering wheel. But I'm here with the map and with all the indicators and the dashboard. And I know how much fuel we have in the car. I know where we are going to. But I also know all the potential routes we could take to get to the destination. And she appreciates when I can say, well, there are two different routes. This one is super risky, but we could be slightly faster. This one is safer, but maybe we'll be a bit slower. And this is really the relationship that I want to establish with all my business partners.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to spend some time with your colleagues over the last few years in these areas. That does sound you need to work with your business partners, build new relationships, understand the business maybe more widely, more broadly than previous times. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And by transforming finance, by automating finance, you remove that transactional workload to free up time to engage. And I'm engaging with customers, as I said earlier. I'm very often visiting customers, customer CFOs, so I can understand their business. I can understand how we as SAP, we can help them manage their challenges and be successful, achieve their business goals. And that's something I can feed back to our sales team. And I can also feed it back in our go-to-market model, how we want to engage with the market. That's something that I could not have done before availability of real-time information as a self-service to the business. And this is really appreciated. Also, to serve as a thought leader, participating in events like this, I could not have done before because I had no time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've just got a few minutes left. I do want to turn to risk.
Mm-hmm.
So can you help us understand the link between the access, the availability of real-time data and trying to manage risk? Because we do live in a pretty crazy world at the moment. There's lots of uncertainty in lots of places and lots of markets.
Yes.
What's the link between having access to good, trustworthy real-time data and trying to manage the risks that you have in your business?
Yeah. So first of all, we're not afraid of risk. Risk is good. High risk brings high return. So we are not afraid of risk, and we don't want necessarily to minimize risk. We want to minimize the impact of risk.
Right.
And it's by knowing what we don't know. Because in a chaotic world, you have the unknowns and the known unknowns, if that makes sense. And I want to know both. I want to know and quantify the risks I know, but I also want a way to identify the risk I don't know. And this is where real-time data is really helping, because it's bringing me visibility and transparency on how we do business, how the market develops, and identify where the risks might be. And topic of artificial intelligence, the previous panel focused on that. This is really a game changer, because now AI can turn all this data for me and attract my attention to those buckets of risks that I might have overlooked in the past.
Just forgive my slow brain. My coffee's wearing off from an hour ago. How do you get more into the areas of unknown using data? I mean, where are you looking? How do you try and expand your knowledge into the areas where you just don't know? That sounds fascinating to me, but I'm not sure how you do it.
Yes. So it can be customer behavior. It starts with simple things like payment patterns, to stay really with the basics. When you understand better how your customer pay your bills, and when you have the trend, you can identify certain industries which are struggling, or certain industries without optimizing cash. That's just a basic example. But then we can apply that to the type of solutions that they are licensing, the usage of the software. So when I see how our software is used on a very granular level, I can predict behaviors of our customers, and we can change our models, our pricing models, our go-to-market model. We can also better cater for the needs of the customers when we know their behavior. So it goes beyond core finance, but this is where finance brings a lot of value to the business.
But you're making a decision to do that, right? You're making a decision to go into areas that you don't know.
Yes.
And that's a conscious decision. I mean, you're doing that, to bring more insight to the rest of your C-suite? Is that why you're doing it?
Yes. Basically, yes. That's what we do. Is when you understand the business, when you can be the co-pilot of the business, you also understand the areas of risk that you would want to manage. And then use technology to further identify and categorize and qualify the risk. And then it's a decision: do you want to go for it? Is it worth taking that risk? And can we afford the intended consequences of that risk?
Absolutely. We've only got a minute to go, Renaud, but I just want to sort of summarize. I imagine people are on the different stages of their journey here, using real-time data, linking it to AI, exploring all these new technologies. But you've probably been on this journey for a while, given your company and your years of experience. But is there any sort of last pieces of advice to people who maybe are starting out or at different stages of their use of AI and real-time data? So
as a CFO, I'm a practitioner. I'm a CFO. I was qualified as a finance professional. I'm not a CIO, but I'm passionate about technology. I need to understand what's going on. I need to understand the art of the possible, what technology can offer to me as a tool to be more efficient. I still have to work 14 years to have my full pension, so I want to be resilient in my role. And it's not a joke. I think it's really important for all of us is how we want to reinvent our function. So it's by being a bit tech savvy and understand how we can leverage technology for ourselves and for our teams to stay relevant. I think is key. And if you keep up to date, and the purpose of this meeting is exactly that, you can then stay relevant and bring the value to your business.
Absolutely.
By bringing the right technology that is relevant to your business.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's flashing red, but please join me in thanking Renaud for his expertise. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.